It is certainly unusual for to reach the middle of February with 4 bona fide first-team squad members approaching the end of their respective deals. Typically, by now, either renewals would have been sorted or the players would have been moved on. Instead, is staring down the barrel of something akin to a mass Bosman exodus. In each individual case, can perhaps argue its position. Naby Keita was very useful last season, and selling the only midfielder in the prime age bracket would have been a very risky summer call. Yet handing out a new deal would have been naive. Sure enough, injuries have struck again in this campaign. Roberto Firmino had looked to be on a steadily consistent decline before the start of this season, and it had presumably also been hoped that would take over more convincingly. Only in the last few months has it become clear that it may be useful to keep the Brazilian around for a little longer. And yet it would have been bold to sell him alongside in the summer, again explaining the contract brinkmanship. Team vs Everton predicted as Harvey Elliott and Nat Phillips in and Cody Gakpo out. Barcelona handed limited priority over transfer target as Jurgen Klopp makes vow. Meanwhile, for different reasons, James Milner and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain have had very limited resale value over the past year or two. Could validly argue that it made more sense to keep them as contributors in the squad than to cash in for fairly nominal fees. Nonetheless, it is hardly a good look to have all 4 players set to leave for nothing, especially when 3 of them play in the same position, and the quartet cost more than $139 million, £115 million per €130 million combined, despite Milner having arrived on a free transfer. There is no escaping the fact that it looks like bad squad management must take lessons from this, and the major takeaway is that it needs to start looking at the players whose contracts run out in 2025 as soon as this summer. If the club wants to sort extensions, it should begin that process. If it wants to cash in for a meaningful fee, it essentially has to be in the next transfer window. 2 of the decisions are probably fairly straightforward. Jordan Henderson's deal runs out in 2025, it's hard to imagine selling him, but nor would he fetch a massive sum, so will probably allow him to be the next in a series of free departures. In truth, if there was a mistake in how the club handled the captain situation, it came at the last renewal. Then there's Kostas Tsimikas. As long as he remains happy with his role, a renewal makes plenty of sense, given the more than competent cover he provides for Andy Robertson. That brings us to the big guns. Virgil van Dijk and all have deals which expire in 2025, and all of them pose something of a dilemma. Football Insider recently that would consider selling Salah in the summer, with the club concluding that he is one of the few assets who could still fetch in excess of $60 million, £50 million per €56 million. While this would be a massively controversial call, and not necessarily the correct one, it is actually encouraging that such conversations have taken place. The club's self-sustaining model simply cannot support a constant free transfer exodus. A renewal for Van Dijk could be tricky too. Could justify maintaining or even increasing his salary, when his existing deal will already take him to the brink of his 34th birthday? But at the same time, does really want to risk losing another massive investment for nothing? It's certainly a headache. Then there's Alexander-Arnold. For the club, it's the easiest call of the 3. Will clearly want to extend his deal, and will presumably be prepared to table a big offer to achieve that. But what about the player himself? Coming up to the peak time for a renewal, he is watching the club stumble badly, and could be facing a season without football. For the first time in years, the call of certain European giants could prove tempting. It's why cannot wait around and let Alexander-Arnold become the next player ticking towards the end of his deal. The only thing worse than losing him would be losing him for nothing. Needs to pursue a new deal is a matter of high priority. In the worst-case scenario, where it becomes clear he does not want to put pen to paper, some tricky transfer conversations would need to be held as early as the summer. Obviously, nobody wants it to come to that. There would be uproar if Alexander-Arnold was sold. But unless S model drastically changes, most likely under a different owner, then this emerging Bosman trends needs to be nipped in the bud, and that means proactive contract decisions on the class of 2025. Handed unlikely triple boost as Jurgen Klopp luck finally turns in top 4 chase myth that was just debunked by one of S best.